Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Warren, and I'm here to present an advanced topic presentation on the Tableau software. This is for IST 719 online for Professor Gary Curtis. So I'll talk a little bit about Tableau, its features and functions. I'll give a brief comparison with ggplot2, which is the primary tool we've been using in our class, describe the learning curve, and my overall summary assessment. Tableau is a desktop and cloud application, and it's designed originally for business use. Tableau does have three versions: the desktop, the cloud, and the server option, which is the enterprise-wide. It does provide lots of visual analytics capabilities, and the software even provides some innate or embedded analytics capabilities to transform data. It also provides mobile connectivity. It's advertised generally as the software that works the way people think. I kind of contest that notion because when I first downloaded it, I had no idea how to begin or where to start importing my data, so that claim might be a little bit far-fetched, but I do think it's very intuitive after you have some slight training. It does use the click and drag method on a graphic user interface for specifying your variables and aesthetics to assign to those variables and create graphics. So Tableau allows you to connect to a data set. It allows you to add variables as pills to columns and rows within your graphic, and it allows you to further customize aesthetics by dragging data from the left pane to either the worksheet or the pages, filters, or marks cards on the left. It also allows you to use drop-down menus on each of the pills that you've created to change how data is measured or displayed. So at this point, I want to give you a quick demonstration of this, because I know it's hard to visualize when all you have in front of you is a slide with text. So if you look at Tableau, I've created a few sample graphics with my data set that I'm going to be using for my final project. This is the data set dealing with access and insecurity as far as people not knowing when they're going to get their next meal across the United States. And all I did here was I initially took the percent of low access household, people that have low access to food and no vehicle. And I also took this variable, food security, from 2010 to 2012, very low food security from 2010 to 2012. They're all found in my measures over here from my data. And I dragged them over, two columns and rows. And what happened then was I was able to look at Show Me, and this kind of shows you, per the title, what kind of graphics and illustrations you might be able to generate from the data that you've specified. So I decided I wanted to try this tree map to see what happened, and it looks like out of all the states, in this visualization, states in the South like Georgia and Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, North Carolina, they're all having some issues as far as the size of these boxes, which is I have mapped to the percent of people with no vehicle and low access to food, and the color I have mapped to the food security variable. So that's one initial demonstration. I also looked at just at counties in New York State. It looks like we have the most problems as far as access with people who have no vehicle and have low access to food in the counties that have the tallest bars, and the counties with the darkest green here over with food security, so very low food security, 2010, 2012, are also having some issues in that area. So probably want to look at that second variable for food security in Franklin and Washington counties, potentially also in Jefferson, and it looks like here in Montgomery County there is the highest percentage of people with low access to food because they have no vehicle, in addition to there not being many grocery stores available to them. So this was an interesting little exercise, and then I even went so far as to specify the same variables and wanted to see it nationwide. And I think Tableau does a really excellent job of doing a map visual. You can, of course, specify the size and scale of the dots that you use, but so you have to keep in your mind, the size of the dot deals with that access variable that I was talking about, people with no vehicle, and the color deals with food insecurity. So everything's pretty blue in New York State, even though we have some larger dots there. But when you make it down into the south, and a little bit over to the west, the Plain States, well, I guess the Plain States aren't so bad in this particular scenario, but Texas has some issues, and you can see quite a few areas in Kentucky where they're having some problems. So I thought this was a good exercise, and I think personally that this visualization turned out very well with the limited amount of time that I spent on it. So, and just as a demonstration, this is a click and drag system. So if I wanted to move this and have instead the % access be mapped to size, I can do that. I might have to remove it first though. And then I can bring back my % access and map it to color, like so. And then I'll have to do some fiddling with the color scheme and the size provided, of course, but you get the idea. It's really pretty intuitive once you get used to the user interface, and it's easy to make changes to your visualizations quite quickly with a limited number of interactions. Okay, so back to our presentation here. As I said, uses drop-down menus on each of the pills. I don't know if I demonstrated that, but we can show you here. So right now I have it set just to attribute, so use the value provided in my data from the % access, low access, children under 10, or children in 2010, excuse me. And I can change that to a sum if I'd rather. That gives me a different result. This is the embedded analytics that I was talking about. You can go by average, median, etc. So an interesting capability there. All right. So in comparison to ggplot2, I think that this particular software provides a very large advantage for people who are not programmers, people kind of like myself who have the most issues trying to specify variables, and sizing is what I have a lot of problems with personally in ggplot when I'm trying to create a visualization. This graphic user interface permits them to easily change and customize a graphic without editing a single command line, which is great. It does have very similar capabilities in terms of the type of visualization that it can generate. The Show Me panel, which I showed you just a moment ago up on the top right, that suggests the best visualizations for the kind of variables that you've specified, is very useful to me. I again struggle with the kind of visualization that's ideal in ggplot2, and this takes away some of that guesswork. The advantage of interactivity, of course, is there if you want to use Tableau mobile or server across an entire enterprise. You can embed Tableau visuals on websites, but there's a very specific process to do that because Tableau does want to have some sort of protection over its product and property. So if you create something in Tableau, you are kind of confined to using another Tableau product to display it, but it is possible to embed it in a website if you know what you're doing. So, and when you do that, it does stay interactive. There's clickable pieces of the visualization to get more details, which is great. Also, there's a very active user community, lots of bloggers and help pages online. I think that's actually very similar to ggplot2 because on every assignment I've used a different online source to help me complete that in ggplot2. But this is also very heavily oriented towards user feedback and help pages. So that's useful. I mentioned on the class discussion boards that I had a rather high learning curve at first. I had no idea what I was looking at when I first opened Tableau and did have to take the time to watch some of the videos before I could understand it. Definitely recommend doing that if you're going to take a look at Tableau for the first time. There are lots of support pages, like I said. They're a little bit less interactive, but they're helpful if you know how to describe the problem that you're having or the term that's used for the issue that you're experiencing. or just the feature. Like if you can look at the interface and say, okay, I want to learn how to switch my axis, for example. There is a button for that, and if you know that's what you're trying to do, that's the search term that you should use. As long as you can do that, the support pages are pretty helpful. So my overall summary assessment, I think it's generally very intuitive after some initial training. I know that I've only scratched the surface on the basic visualizations that I've created, but after you have some initial training on the UI, like I said, and you know how to interact with it, it's quite intuitive. I think it's very useful for people who have little programming experience. One thing to note, however, I did sign up for a free student account through Tableau. As long as you have a .edu email address, it's possible to do that. But if you cannot do that, I think there is a substantial cost associated with it. I think it's a monthly subscription, or your enterprise has to front the cost if you want to do Tableau Server. So that's an important note to make. And overall, I think it creates excellent visuals. I think it's a very well done piece of software. And I think that the graphics, when they come out, are quite polished, really. You don't have to make many changes as you would from a ggplot perspective. You get the output, and then you have to polish it up a little bit, make the colors more intuitive, change your axis, what have you. A lot of that is not really necessary in Tableau, which I think is great, and you can do everything in a matter of less than 10 clicks and drags if you know what you're doing. So overall, I really enjoyed learning more about Tableau and using it, and I hope that my little presentation has been somewhat helpful. And thanks everyone for your time.